first time that I truly understood that God wanted to use my story, my life, as part of His greater story. I was in college. I became a Christian in high school, leading Bible studies, preaching on occasion, and then even in early college, I became a part of a team that I was basically the interim youth pastor at a church. And even then, I truly didn't understand this concept, this idea, until God really used a couple of events to truly open my eyes. The first event that happened was a group of us in college were going to the fair. And it was a group, I knew pretty much everybody there. I was friends with everybody, but there was this one guy that was there that I didn't know. And so when we first started, I kind of introduced myself to him or whatever, and we just kind of went on about the night. And I ended up getting sick on one of the rides, the super intense one, like all men. I got sick on the ride that's like a giant swing called the Pharaoh's Fury that just did like this and back and forth, and I got sick. And so that was my last ride for the night, and so everybody else continued doing stuff, and I just kind of hung out with everybody from that point forward. Anyways, everybody else, the next ride, whatever it was, everybody else got on this ride except for this other guy that I'd introduced myself to, and we're starting small talk, whatever. And anyways, and he just kind of like stops and turns and looks at me and says, "You're the reason I started going to church." And this obviously threw me because I was like, I don't know who this guy is. I introduced myself to him, so we started talking about this. And it comes to find out that I guess I had a class with him in high school, my senior year weightlifting class. And somehow, some way, something that he saw in me from that point that made Christianity attractive to him, to where he started going to another youth group, not even the one that I was in and leading and everything like that. And it was just kind of flabbergasted me because I looked back and thought about my time in that class and some of the other people that were in the class with me and some of the conversations we had that, to be frank, were not honoring to God. And I was like, okay, so how in the world could God use this for this guy that I didn't even know existed, and somehow use that at my life in that scenario to impact him for eternity? And so I was thinking about this as I got home and decompressing for the night and everything like that. And the next day, I was in a calculus class, and I carpooled to town, to university, with a buddy of mine. And I was pretty good with test taking and things of that nature. And so I finished the test in like 15 minutes. And anyways, and so I had a pretty long period of time to wait for my friend to get done with his class so that we could leave. And so I just kind of went and got some things and went and sat at a picnic table on the back side of campus, kind of like distance from everywhere else. There was like 6 picnic tables just kind of like on the back side of campus. Anyways, and I sat there and I was thinking about the night before and the conversation that had happened. And I literally, like, I sat down and I bowed my head and I just prayed and I said, "God, could you please just use me today to impact somebody's life?" And it's crazy, right? Because I prayed and then like I literally pulled up my head, and there's this guy come walking across the grass to come sit at one of these tables, and there's like 5 or 6 tables, and they're all empty except for mine. And he comes and sits down right across from me, and so we start talking, and come to find out, he actually was taking calculus as well, not in the same class that I was taking, but he was in the same class but a different time. And so he was getting ready to go into his calculus class to take the test that I had just taken. And so I was studying to be a math teacher at the time, and so I kind of helped him out with some of the things. I was like, "Oh, don't focus on that," or explain some things and helped him out or whatever. And so anyways, after that, we just kind of started talking, and he kind of like asked a little bit about what I did, and I kind of mentioned the fact that I was filling in as a youth pastor at the time, and he was like, "Oh, I don't go to church. I don't believe in that." And I said, "Okay, that's cool." And so I kind of switched the subject. Didn't want to pry or anything like that. And so we just started talking. And, come to find out, this guy's living with his girlfriend, but they're cheating on each other, having all these relationship problems, and he just like unveils all this stuff to me. He's like asking for my advice for what he should do with his girlfriend that he thinks he loves, but they can't ever seem to like be faithful to one another, and they treat each other like crap, and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm like, well, I've never really been in a long-term relationship at that point, and so I was just kind of like, here's some advice, I guess. And anyways, and so we just continued on talking, and then my buddy came and we left. But as I was getting ready to leave to go get in the car to go home, the guy looked at me, he said, "Hey, I wish more Christians were like you." And so God used these two things back to back like that to really show me, just to open my eyes to the idea that God is doing something in the world. He loves people. He wants to reach out to people and draw them to himself. And he wants to use people like you and me to do that. And when I finally understood this, like this was kind of like a little bit of a beginning steps into a culmination of things as I began to truly understand this concept. It changed my thought process. It changed my life to understand that the God of the universe has his story, the great story of history of what he's doing in the world as he's preparing the world for the return of Jesus to usher in, when heaven and earth collide and eternal paradise and all of that. And in the meantime, though, he's doing these things. He's God. He can do whatever he wants. But he wants to use us to do that. He wants to allow us the amazing privilege to be a part of what he's doing in the world. And that just changed my life. And this led to eventually me, dropping out of school, going into ministry, going to seminary and things of that nature, because I really saw this idea kind of gripped me with this idea of just saying, like, God desires to use us. And so now my life is devoted, and that's really the life of this church is devoted to helping people understand that truth, that our stories, as broken and as messed up as they may seem, even when we don't think that there's anything redeemable in them, God wants to use those stories, use our story, and draw them, make them part of his great story. And so now that's what my life is devoted to, is to teaching people how God does that. And that's really what we're doing with this series. And so it's just an amazing thing that we're studying. It's just something that I'm still learning about, how God does this. And it's so amazing to see when God does do it. And it changes everything.